Welcome, 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 and thank you for joining us on another episode of today's Electrical Estimating. I'm your co-host, Chris Trommer, and as always, I'm joined by my other co-host, Sal Huerta. So, Sal, we've spent a lot of weeks at this point on different interviews and guests and episodes talking about databases, why manufacturers should be looking into their data and product information within these databases, why contractors should be looking at what data is available in the databases, how to update it, all different directions about data. And figured next best thing for us to do would be talk to sort of a source of where this data is coming from. And that would be Mike Wentz, who's joining us today, who's the Vice President of Sales and Marketing from IDEA. And they're pretty much the gold standard as it goes right now for data in the industry. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
They're primarily working with the manufacturer. They're getting it from top down, working with the manufacturer, setting standards, and having that information that they're collecting, that data, and trickling it down to distributors so that the distributors have it in their systems. And then, contractors being able to see this or not see this in the way they interact with the distributor partners.
Yes. And, again, like you mentioned, they're the standard of what data is for our industry. And as you can imagine, if you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of manufacturers, their outputs, so to speak, all don't align with each other. Some have, weights and some have sizes and it's not just the standard, here's a catalog number and a description. So an organization like IDEA, what they do is they take all those different formats and put them into a standard that a distributor system can recognize. And then that same standard pared down, so to speak, is what a contractor's estimating program will be looking for as well. So they're the ones that have to put all the information together in a way that these programs can understand it.
So I think Mike puts it as they're the conduit for the industry, where they're setting the standards of what's needed when weights and measures, packaging, dimensions, UPC numbers, and getting that from the manufacturer, providing it to a distributor. And that way there's easy communication downstream. And that way, if a contractor is interacting with a distributor through purchasing or pricing, whatever it may be, they're getting the same information that's coming from the manufacturer, not something that's all jumbled up and hard to understand because everybody's doing their own thing.
We've all experienced that, where even ourselves, when we've gone to a hardware store, purchased something, brought it back, and it's the wrong one. I mean, and again, in a construction job scenario, that loss of labor is what kills the job. It's not the price of the item, it's the people standing around waiting for the right part to be there. So as you mentioned, the standardization of these items helps along the process to where when the contractor buys that product from a distributor, they know what they're looking for because it all matches up.
Now, to just quickly rewind before we move forwards with our interview with Mike, you had mentioned something about the estimating environment and contractors. Now, I know IDEA is working primarily with the manufacturer and distributor partnership, and it does make its way to the contractor. But my understanding at this time is the data that they're receiving isn't flowing directly down into estimating databases because they're dealing with hundreds of millions of products, maybe. I don't know. That might have been over the top a little bit, but they're dealing with all these products here. And if they sent that right down into estimating databases, contractors, estimators, they'd be overwhelmed by how much they're receiving.
Absolutely correct. And we've talked to this with different people who have been on this podcast, to where when they talk about contractors, they're not all the same. Some do this job and some do that job and some specialize in this. And so you need a database that matches those. So like you mentioned, if you just had a top-down data scenario, you would have millions and millions of items in a database of items you don't need. So you do need a service like a net pricer, which we have a a product that's called our Smart ECAT, which is our online catalog that houses these 2 million items for these contractors. And now the contractor has the ability through their estimating package to go into this database, grab whatever items they're looking for, bring them into their database, and now can customize their database to the jobs or the work that they actually do. And again, that the value to that is they don't have this massive database floating around, taking up space in their computer system of items they probably will never use.
So it's pretty much providing them a housing area and access directly to the IDW information or ideas data coming from the manufacturer without having to bring this onto their own platforms or databases. But as they need to, they can go in and select 5, 10, 16, 20 different products and import them as needed without overloading their systems.
Absolutely. And there could be a job that specifies a manufacturer that they've never had before. Now they can, instead of going to the manufacturer site to try to find it, they can go to our online catalog, grab the couple items, like you said, that they need, pull them into the job, and then now they have all that information, like you mentioned earlier, UPC number, catalog, description, things that the estimating program is looking for without them having to individually go and try to find every one of these data in every one of these columns.
All right. Well, let's jump into this interview, hear from Mike about where idea came from, what they're doing, what sets them apart from a lot of other data companies that are out there. As always, Sal, great speaking with you. Catch up with you next week.
We'll see you next week.
Mike, you're with Idea. I know who Idea is from knowing you over the years at trade shows and conferences. So you're aware of Idea through our partnership with them. There's probably a lot of manufacturers who are out there that know what Idea does, and same with distributors, people within certain positions. But it might not have trickled down to contractors or others within those different channels. Could you fill us in, just give us some insight into who is Idea, why is Idea, and really what is Idea?
It was really a unique concept that was born out of some real industry visionaries back 25 years ago. The electrical industry was way out in front of a lot of other industries in the construction space because they realized the value of a couple of things. One, having a common numbering system for all of their products so that UPC codes could eventually be developed and a lot of digital commerce could be conducted. But they also realized that there had to be a very efficient way for manufacturers to exchange product information with their authorized distributors. So when IDEA was created, it was an industry collaboration to produce or to create a company that would provide a mechanism to have a direct communication link between all the manufacturers in the electrical industry and all the distributors that decided to participate. Right from the beginning, one of the fundamental founding principles of IDEA was that IDEA was meant to be a conduit. We were not ever intended to edit the content or create content around the manufacturer's product information. We were just meant to deliver pricing information, transactional data, and catalog content eventually to the distributors. And originally, when IDEA was created, it was intended to be NEMA, the National Electrical Manufacturers Association, and NAED, the Distributor Association, to be 50-50 partners in the effort. And also, NEMRA, the Manufacturer Rep Association, was intended to participate. But NEMRA sort of dropped away. And so here we are 25 years later, and we're still owned 50-50 by the industry, by NEMA and NAED.
Now, if you had to go through, because I know you guys have expanded into different services recently, you've probably grown over, I think you said 25 years now. What is sort of the main service currently providing?
We provide the product information, the data syndication for the manufacturers, which we're now doing globally. So we have over 100 distributors outside of North America that receive content from our syndication platform, which is called Idea Connector. But back in the early days, there was also a realization by the industry that Idea could serve a role to reduce cost of a business transaction exchange. So we created what we call Idea Exchange, which is an EDI platform that is specifically designed and built out for the electrical industry. So all of your POs, your PO confirmation, invoices, all types of EDI documents now flow through us as well. So those are the two cornerstone offerings. And as you mentioned, we now are beginning to extend services that really increase the value of the data. So we have partnerships where it may be a company that has a specific software platform that can deliver value, but it needs to have accurate product information.
Gotcha.
Chris, I can testify to that. The working relationship that our company, Net Pricer, works with IDEA to provide information down to the contractor space. And again, the quality of what they have and what they put together is, second to none. And so when we're passing this down to the end user in our field, which is contractors, they now have the ability of using the best information that's out there. Much like Mike said, they've been this has been decades putting it together. They know what they're doing. So that's why we partner with them, because they've been the best.
That's correct. I mean, Electric Smarts has been probably our longest standing partnership, Sal, going back well over a decade. We've been partnering. And the reason we did that, over 10 years ago was we saw the value that Sal's company and your company deliver to the contractor. And that was a missing piece of the supply chain from what we did. So it was a natural partnership, and the value has been going strong for 10 years now.
So something I got to ask is, because you mentioned before, primarily when you were speaking, manufacturers, distributors. Sal brought up the fact of contractors, and you had just said, the missing piece. Idea working primarily with the manufacturers and distributors. I know you mentioned that before, but is that trickling down to the contractors? Is that sort of what you guys are looking for it to do, for them to be the benefit of having this information at the end?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for the manufacturers who we syndicate their product information to know that accurate data is flowing throughout the supply chain. Now, we want to support the supply chain as we know it, because we think manufacturers, distributors, and contractors all have an important role to play. So there's no intention to minimize any of the value that any of those players bring. So if we provide information out to contractors, the intent is that that information will be used to purchase products through their authorized distributor or through their preferred distributors. But yes, we see where the demand is coming from is obviously in the field, where things are being put together and being built out, and that's important that they have efficiency to be able to to move those jobs along.
I guess rewinding a little bit, is this all starting with the manufacturer? Is it sort of top down how you guys are going? Because you mentioned being a conduit before. So all of this is really beginning with the manufacturer, correct? Are you setting sort of specifications or things that they need to provide with their data, or helping them create it? Or, what are you guys doing with them that this is starting this whole process?
Yeah, one of the things that was unique, I mean, there were other services that provided this kind of product information to distributors and to contractors prior to IDEA being created. But one of the concepts that the founders had in mind was to have a very efficient conduit and to make sure that as much that could be done machine to machine or without human intervention was occurring. So most of our manufacturers have direct connectivity into our syndication platform from their product information systems or their engineering systems or whatever. So there is a direct flow, usually without human contact, that comes directly from the manufacturer. So, for an example, if they change a price or they change a package quantity or they change something about the product, that change flows directly from their system into our system out to the field. And that happens automatically in most cases. And we get over, I think it's a little over 100,000 changes a week regarding, those kind of small changes.
So is that connectivity, and I guess you can look at it as also automation of your services, is that really what sets IDEA apart from other, I don't know how do you classify yourself, but data providers or data companies out there? Because I know, like you said, and I've come across in the past, there is a lot of different data companies out there, and I've talked with people, and they don't know really what the difference is between all these data companies. I mean, data should be data. That's data. Why is there 5 or 6 different data companies out there? What's the difference between them? People aren't really understanding why data is being so different for so many different companies.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I agree with you. I think there's a lot of people that don't understand totally. One of the other aspects that we were created to serve was as an industry standards body for data. And having incubated out of NEMA, who one of their primary roles is to create safety standards for electrical products because, certain accidents could kill people in the electrical world. So safety and standards was always really important. So IDEA set out to be the facilitator of industry standards around data in the industry. So we obviously adhere to all the standards that we help create. Plus, we bring together the industry so that everybody can agree on what those standards are. And the reason that we take it directly is we feel like there's no better way to get it than get it from the source. And many other companies that have evolved don't put the same focus on following the industry standards so that everybody's, reading out of the same playbook. And some of them actually, go out and do a lot of scraping and collect data in a number of different ways that really creates certain questions around the reliability of that data, because it not always does it come directly from the manufacturer. In our case, as I said earlier, it almost comes directly out of their systems to the distributor or to the contractor because of the connectivity that we have with them.
So what a contractor, it seems like Idea Data, is really just certified data. It's very strong. It's coming directly from the manufacturer. Would a contractor be able to tell the difference between the data they're seeing through, a system with a distributor or, these different services that they're using, that they're looking at UPCs or specs or anything of that nature? Can they tell the difference if it's Idea Data or it's another company that's went through and just scraped the internet and threw something together? Do they have that visibility?
They might. I mean, I think it depends on the contractor, and as you know about the contractor world, there's a big diversity in different size contractors, and three employees to 3,000 employee contractors. So I think the bigger ones probably have a better handle on the data. Plus, you also have to remember that in most contractor jobs, a lot of the items are very repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
And they're working with pretty much the same small group of items many times, and I don't know that they're looking real hard at some of those products because they're so used to it. It's so normal. If they're building a specialty job or something that requires a lot of different types of products that maybe they're not used to implementing or installing, I think in that case it becomes very visible to them that if they're getting product data that has the ability to get spec sheets, be able to get implementation guides or videos, they can get all that information through IDEA because that manufacturer is providing that to facilitate the use of their products.
And Chris, and that's a important point because, as Mike mentioned, it's not the same old UPC number, catalog description type of scenario. There's the videos, the MSDS sheets, 360 item rotations, other stuff that IDEA provides that allows us to have that information in the services that NetPricer provides to customers.
Gotcha. And I guess that's the big thing here is the downstream users, like you said, having it from a manufacturer authorized to the distributor, not just scrape data that, you don't really know if it's accurate or not, and then flowing down to the contractor if they know it or not, but having this information. Now, your opinion, I mean, as you said, there's these other companies out there that are scraping data and just throwing out there. And then there's you guys that have this verified data from the manufacturer. It's full, it's complete, you set standards, so on and so. Why does there remain as many data companies as there are in the industry right now? It seems like you guys are setting a standard that can be trusted, protected. There's a lot of things you're putting in place. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of there's some confusion about that. Some of the companies that people may think are pure data companies are offering other unique services, and some of them build on top of the content service that we provide.
So going through all this, it really makes me feel like data sort of running the industry at this point, or playing a very big role in what's occurring on a daily basis. And I feel like as we move forward with more automation and computer systems and AI and everything, do you feel like that's really the direction that we're going? Is data bridging a lot of gaps, and that's why companies are now paying attention to it?
I think so. I mean, we talk a lot about the digitalization of the industry, and it's really about improving the quality of data exchange and communication between trading partners. And it's also talking about trying to create more efficiency between trading partners. So if I can save my customer time and money, that's good for them. That's good for me. So, and data is the key. All of the automation that's been introduced in the last 35 years is all centered on around data. Whether it was, back when I got started, when people were just distributors starting to automate the way they build their customers, automate the way that they purchase from manufacturers. So today, it's a pretty much a machine to machine process when a distributor goes out and looks at what they need to order, and and they do an inventory survey through their systems. So that data is really important because that determines how much and when they're going to buy. And in order to get that data right, in order to get those forecasts correct, you have to have good data to begin with. And
Mhm.
now on the selling side, which so much of the business is moving to the web, not necessarily the purchases, but the research is moving to the web. So the data that's out on the web is really the representation of the product. And some people have coined the phrase that today the data is the product.
Mhm.
And if you're out on the web and you're building a new building or something and you're looking for alternatives, if you're an architect, the information that you can research on the web is probably going to drive what you specify in that spec when you do the plan or the design. That's why manufacturers are so keen on having good representation of their products, making sure that everything that should be known about the product is available. Because if it's not, it puts them at a disadvantage to their competition.
Do you feel like data is going to be fueling additional automation and connectivity moving into the future? Is that what you're foreseeing? Like if you had to predict what you see over the next decade or 2 decades, do you see data being that fuel to the fire of pushing automation, possibly AI, and more connectivity to where more hands-off approach for day-to-day people and more, talking between different programs?
I think so. I mean, what I've seen through my career is that there was overall automation, and now it's getting to be, and that was sort of in the back office, and now it's like almost every sector of the electrical supply chain. Somebody's looking at how to make it more efficient, and the contractor space is an area that's really ripe for more innovation and efficiency. And we've been looking at that for 25 or 30 years as well. But there's been a change in generational, population that's involved in the industry, and I really think the time is right. So when you look at how things have been done for 100 years, there's a lot of room for efficiency, especially in the contractor space. And I think you're going to see more and more solutions come out that are automating smaller and smaller pieces of the process. I once had a professor in college that told me one of the funniest sayings I think I ever heard. He said, with specialization, we're learning more and more about less and less, and pretty soon we'll know everything about nothing. But to a degree, in the industry, we're automating less and less because we've already crossed that bridge.